But we're in this series called I Have Decided. If you missed last week, I encourage you to go online and watch it. 3 people told me it was good, and so I just encourage you guys to check that out. But today I want to talk to you about I have decided to follow Jesus. And I know that sounds really simple on the surface and everything, but the truth is, if I asked every single person in this room what it means to follow Jesus, I would have as many different answers as there are people in the room. Everybody has their own idea of what it means to follow Jesus. Matter of fact, you could go from church to church, and you're going to probably get some different twists on different things. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on what it means to follow Jesus. And so I think it's really important. Jesus actually talks about it, what it means to follow him. So we're going to be diving into that today. I don't know if you have ever heard of Billy Graham. I mean, obviously, hopefully you have. He's one of the greatest evangelists of all time. And he used to have these crusades that tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people would show up to. And there's this song that he would give an invitation at the end, if you're ready to receive Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior. And thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, would stream out of their seats. And the song would play. It was the song that's on there. It's, I have decided to follow Jesus. And some of the words, it goes like this. It says, the cross is before me and the world behind me. I've decided to follow Jesus. And it just kind of became an anthem of the Billy Graham crusades over the years. And I encourage you later to go research this song. I have decided to follow Jesus. And figure out where it comes from. It actually goes all the way back to the 19th century, early 1800s over in India. There was a man that named Assam that lived in a village over there, and he actually gave his life to Christ, and he had decided to follow Jesus. And which sounds great to all of us, except for in that day and age and in that village, that was a punishable offense by death. And so his whole family was following Jesus. And so literally the officials of the town come and ripped him and his family out of their home and told them, hey, if you don't renounce the name of Christ, you're going to be executed. We're going to murder you. And he looks at him and says, I have decided to follow Jesus. And so as he watched his wife's throat be slit, they gave him another opportunity, and he watched his wife die. He gave him another opportunity and said, you have one last chance. We'll let you live. Your faith is not worth it. This is ignorant. And he said these words, I see the cross before me and the world behind me. I've decided to follow Jesus. And with that, they killed him. So I believe if we know the context of things sometimes, it can change our perspective. And we don't face that type of persecution. I just wonder, what does it mean for you to follow Jesus? What does it literally mean to have the cross before you and the world behind you? If you were facing, all of us, man, we love this hero type mentality. Oh yeah, that's me. I would, really? Because I'll just go, today's probably not going to be a fun message. You picked the wrong week, but it's cold and the doors are locked. So, but it's one of these messages where I'm going to speak very plainly to you. Because to be honest, most people's faith gets shaken over the silliest of things. A financial hardship, a health issue, somebody dying unexpectedly, a relational hardship. And our faith gets shaken. And so I want to make it very clear today, as clear as I feel like I know how, of what it means to follow Jesus. And I kind of figured that we would just listen to what Jesus had to say on it. And he has a lot to say. Actually, we're going to be in Mark chapter 8, starting in verse 27, if you're following along in your talk notes. If not, it'll be up on the screens. Starting in verse 27, it says, Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. This is important. to understand this Caesarea Philippi. It's in the northeastern region, the very northeastern corner of Israel. Now, this is very far away from Jerusalem. We think of Israel as kind of like the Holy Land. This is very much the opposite of that. It's not holy at all. Matter of fact, you can still go there today. There's still altars made. The village was surrounded and just everywhere and dotted with altars that they used to make sacrifices to pagan gods with. And so I think it's interesting because what Jesus is getting ready to say to his disciples, he wanted to make sure the environment was right. Because sometimes it's easy to sit there and hear about Jesus and what it means for commitment and what it means to follow whenever you're in a situation or a setting like church or around people like your grandparents that have been following Jesus since Moses was born, And it's very easy to be in a comfortable spot like that. And Jesus wanted to remove them as far away as they could from the priests and the elders and the religious scene. And so just imagine them walking past all these pagan rituals going on here. It says on the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" Very important question back then because Jesus was gaining a lot of popularity. There was a lot of buzz going on about Jesus, and people were saying all sorts of different things. The disciples replied, "Well, some say you're John the Baptist," which is funny. Others say Elijah, and still others, you're just one of the prophets. Well, some people say that you're John the Baptist, which is weird, I think, because John the Baptist literally just had been beheaded literally not too long before this. And some people said that he was Elijah. You see, back then they really believed with all their hearts in reincarnation. And so that's just the day and age. And so they were believing that he was the reincarnation of all these great prophets. I love what Jesus asked, and I think he would ask you the same thing today. But what about you? Who do you say I am? He's saying, I don't care what the church leaders are saying. I don't care what your mama and your daddy's saying. I don't care what your spouse is saying. Who do you say I am? And Peter, being Peter, he's awesome. He's always like the first one. Everything, he just blurts out stuff all the time. I relate to Peter a lot because that's kind of me. I'm like, hey, I know the answer to this. Peter answered, "You are the Christ," which is true. But if you understand what Peter meant by that, Peter still had it all wrong. Peter had it all wrong. I mean, he had it right, but he had it wrong. Because there had been the prophecy for hundreds of years that the Messiah was coming, the Christ. And as legend and prophecy and stories got told over the years, it was for him to come back and save the children of God and to get them free from all oppression. And so they really thought that the Messiah was going to come to set up his rule in Israel, and everybody who opposed him would be smoked. And he was going to set up his reign, and so he was literally going to be like the president. They were waiting for the Messiah, the Christ, to come, so they'd be like the president. And Peter, being ever the opportunist, he jumps on it real quick. You're the Christ, and it's going to be awesome. And if you're going to pick a vice president, I think I'm a good candidate. And so even though he knew, he had the revelation that he was the Christ, he still had it all wrong. They had it all wrong as to what Jesus was there to do. Jesus knew they had it wrong, so he tells them this. Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. It says, then he began to teach them, because they needed to be taught. Some of us just need to be taught. He began to teach them that the Son of Man himself must suffer. You have to realize the news to the disciples whenever Jesus says these next few sentences was shocking. The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and teachers of the law. Then he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. It says he spoke plainly about this. He took this moment like Jesus had been with him. And he taught so many different things. He often taught in parables. And Jesus took this opportunity and said, no parables here. No. It's like eye to eye, man to man, like I'm going to tell you straight up what's up. I'm not the guy that you thought I was going to be. To be who I am and what I'm going to go through, and for you to be associated with that, your life's not fixing to be a bowl of cherries, like a lot of people think. I love this. It says, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. I love the way that's worded. Peter's crazy. Like, if you're going to rebuke a lot of people, Jesus is not one of them, off limits, you know what I'm saying? I love how it says he began to rebuke Jesus, because he probably didn't get very far with that. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he turned around and rebuked Peter. He said, "Get behind me, Satan." Now, I've been called a lot of things. The devil's probably not one of them. I mean, that's pretty raw right there. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." He says, "You don't have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." So what about your view of God? What about who you say Jesus is? What about the way that your life looks like you follow Jesus? Does your life reflect the things of God? Or are you in it more for your own self-glory? It's interesting. Then he called to the crowd. He's like, this is a great teaching moment. There's still a big crowd around. He gathers a crowd around him, along with his disciples, and he says, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Now we hear that and it sounds all, oh yeah, pick up my cross and follow. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, pick up my cross and follow Jesus. Like, I'm going to take it to the next level. So I think I'm going to build this cross with a wheel on the back of it and drag it down the road. Or whatever it looks like. We love the cross. And I understand why it's become the symbol of our salvation. And to them, this would be horrifying. This is the symbol of execution. This is the place where you go to die. Jesus saying, you got to pick up your cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. Jesus said, you'll go through this life. Look, you're all going to die in the end. You have a 100 and 100 chance of dying. You can do everything you can to save your life, but in the end, you're still going to end up like everybody else. You'll be dead. I don't care how much you exercised. I don't care how much of that health food crap you ate. Hey, if you exercise and eat healthy, let me tell you how you're going to die. Sweaty and with a horrible taste in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? You're still going to die. It says, whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. Look, you're going to lose your life anyways. You might as well voluntarily lose it. And say, it's not about me, it's about you, God. And if you live your life for, he's saying, if you live your life for me and for this gospel, the good news, the message, then you'll save it, because it's not about this life, it's temporary. He's talking about an eternal life. What good is it for a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? What good is it for to climb the corporate ladder, to get the savings account big enough and get a fat retirement going on, and so you can be comfortable and all? What good is it for all that? And it all sounds great. What good is it to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Everybody would be against that. Or what can a man give in exchange for his soul? If Jesus was asking you that today, you'd say nothing. Nothing's worth it. If anyone's ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels. A lot of us say, oh, there's nothing that would be worth exchanging my soul for. But then we have a hard time. That story is told about the exact same in the Gospel of Luke, but verse 23, he adds a word to it. So Jesus said to all of them, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily. Follow me. We'd say that nothing's worth our soul. And yet every day we have to make the decision to follow Jesus and pick up our cross. And we have a hard time with that. I've decided to follow Jesus. Next little part, there's 5 little parts in your notes there. It's a scale of 1 through 5 of where each person is. So everybody's somewhere on this. Actually, Pastor Rick Warren came up with this scale. And I think it's pretty cool. So as we go through it, it'll be progressive from beginning to end. And just kind of between you and God, just like identify where you're at on this, because everybody's somewhere on this. And the first one would be crowd, or we'll call it the come and see. Crowd or the come and see. Maybe you're in the crowd. It's all right. Everybody starts off in the crowd. It's actually, we fashion our weekend experiences, what you're sitting in now, for the crowd. Just kind of the come and see, kick the tires. People invited you. You're just in the crowd. You just want to see what it's all about. All this Jesus saying, maybe you just give him another chance. So it's great. I mean, Peter was even in the crowd once. I mean, Jesus didn't always talk to Peter as his disciple. He was actually in the crowd once. And whenever you're in the crowd, we try to keep it light and easy, and it's like more about what is in it for you. And so Peter was this way. Remember when Jesus first met Peter, he was on a boat, and what did Jesus do for Peter? Fills his boat up with fish. And see, I think it's the same way. We see the benefits of what Jesus can do for our life, and we're like, heck yeah, we're going to follow him. Who wouldn't follow a guy who can fill your boat up with fish? You know what I'm saying? It's like, a lot of people in here is like, yeah, I want to spend eternity in heaven with him. Yeah, you say he can heal, and he can save, and then he can set free, and he can break addictions and generational curses and all these things. Heck, sign me up. You'd fall in this first category, the crowd to come and see. And the second would be this, the congregation, or the come and join us. All right, well, you've kicked the tires for a little bit. Now it's like, hey, man, I'm kind of digging it. I need to get involved in a church family. I need to get involved in a church home. And so I want to be a part of this, and I want to get to knowing people. And around here, we can get it kicked off in a few short weeks on our small groups. And small groups are really where you get to know people. It's where you get to become part of the family, and it's incredible. And so a lot of people, you're maybe not the crowd, but you just kind of hang out. You love the people here, and so you're just kind of involved. So you'd be in the congregation. The third is committed, or the come and grow. Be like, hey, I checked it out, and hey, I've got a few friends and all this, but man, I realize I've got a lot of stuff going on with my life, a lot of junk that I'm going through, and I don't know a whole lot. I need to learn some stuff. I need to grow, and so what we have here, we actually have the growth track. On the second part of us today, I encourage you guys, if you haven't been through it, jump in. This is where it helps you can discover a little bit about yourself and God and the church, and figure out how they all meet up and go together. And there's just a growth. You're committed, and you want to grow. Maybe you need to get into some sort of growth group whenever it starts up. I would recommend our life group or freedom group. It's just incredible. It's where you're like committed to growing. You want to go deeper and get some junk worked out. So we have that. That's the third level. The fourth one is the core, or come and serve. Core, come and serve. All right, so you checked it out, and maybe you're committed, and you got some friends, and this is where you're growing and planted. Now you've discovered some things about yourself, and you say, you know what? I want to get involved. I want to use I want to make a difference. I want to join your team. We call it the dream team here. And dream teamers are incredible. I believe that you'll never live a fulfilled life until you know what it's like to be on a team serving other people to advance the gospel. And so I think that it's just kind of really cool. I think you should get involved, and some people are the core. So, hey, we've got all of this work, and if you look, that's the 4 things we do. Weekend experiences, small groups, the growth track, and the dream team. And then there's the fifth one, and this is the most difficult one. This is a step above everything else in this commissioned, or come and die. Commission like, hey, look, it doesn't matter what happens. You'll never pull me off of this. I will die doing this. Because I was made for this. I was called for this. I was saved for this. I was created for this. So the commission. So where are you at on all those? And over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to go we're going to go over the last part of that list a little bit and deal with some things. But I want to kind of focus maybe on the first two categories for the next few minutes before we get out of here. Because something weird around here happens. Something astounding around here happens. It's strange and amazing and awe-inspiring at the same time. Because 2015, through all of its ups and downs and stuff, we had 411 people give their lives to Christ right here. And I just think it's incredible. And so here's what I know, is there's a lot of people that has just moved from, that's in that first or second area right there. And I want to speak to those people. I want to speak to them. I want to tell you what your first step is. Actually, Acts 2:41 tells us what it is. Those who accepted his message were baptized. And about 3,000 were out of their number that day. So here's what I want to tell you what your first step is. It's water baptism. And water baptism always comes post-decision. A lot of people would say, well, I was baptized whenever I was younger. Well, that's cute. Cute. Oh, I hope you got a picture. But if you've committed your life to Christ, and there was a moment in here where you go, you know what? Today's the day that I have decided to follow Jesus. I'm surrendering my life. You need to get water baptized after that decision. You need to. We're going to do water baptisms here in 2 weeks. You need to decide. It's post-decision because it should be a decision that's based on conviction and not convenience. It should be based on conviction and not convenience, because a lot of people would say, oh, I just don't like it. Well, I'm going to go through 3 reasons as to why this should be your first step. The first is this: to follow the example set by Christ. Follow the example set by Christ. 1 Corinthians 11:1 says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Oh, these are all nice scriptures, but that's ending right here when we read 1 John 2:4. Listen to these words. This is crazy. Someone may say, I'm a Christian, and I'm on my way to heaven, and I belong to Christ. But if he doesn't do what Christ tells him to do, he's a liar. Sit in that. Just you and Jesus, sit in that. Because our time here is short. It's like I usually get about a half hour a week. Most of you are like halfway committed, so I'll see you like maybe 2 out of 4 weeks. And so if you figure that out, and 52, so 26, and so I basically got 13 hours a year of your life. And here's what I want to do with those 13 hours a year with your life. I don't want you to go to hell confused, thinking, I had it figured out because American Christianity just scares me. It just does. Some people are just playing games. Jesus didn't get murdered for you to play games. Just didn't. Look, I had a lot. I'm just a rant for a second, if I may. You wouldn't believe the number of people. Well, yeah, you would believe. Remember, I don't know if you watched last week or if you was here. I said, give me a year of your life. Buy into everything. Buy into everything we do. Your life would be forever changed. Didn't have one single person come up and say, I'm in. Had a lot of people come up. A lot. Say, I would, but. I want to, but. And I understand, look, I get it. I get it. I get it. Second reason why you should take your first step in baptism is to demonstrate my changed life. Demonstrate my changed life. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 21 says, in baptism we show that we've been saved from death and doom by the resurrection of Christ. Not because our bodies are washed clean by the water, but because in being baptized, we're turning to God and asking Him to cleanse our hearts from sin. I love how they, over in Israel, the Jordan River is where Jesus was baptized, and that's where John the Baptist was baptizing everybody, and they still baptize people over there, and it's a real dirty river. But they didn't baptize like we do now, like, hey, dunk them down like that and bring them back up. It would just be a sinking under the water, full immersion under the water. But it's interesting how they would do it, because they would go into the water with two robes on. And the robe underneath would be this beautiful, pure white robe, clean. Then they have another robe on over it that was dirty, dingy, tattered, torn, ripped up, just looked raw and rough. And so they would go, as they went down under the water, they would take off the robe, the top robe, and they would come up in this clean, fresh white robe. And the other robe, the tattered one, the dirty one, would just float down the river, showing that their old life is gone. I just think that's a beautiful picture. To demonstrate my changed life. The third and final would be to declare my commitment publicly. To declare my commitment publicly. It's always funny to me the amount of people that will sit there and say, well, your faith should be between just you and God, and you should keep it private. What? That's dumb, isn't it? I just think it's crazy. Is that the way you treat your marriage? I ain't going to let anybody know I'm married to him. Between me and him. They say baptism is like the wedding ring of Christ. You need to show everybody. Look, he died naked and bleeding on a cross for you. A lot of people's like, I don't want to really get wet in front of people. Go to hell. I don't know. Oh, you want me to say it nicer? Go to hell. Like, you just got to follow the example set by Christ. If you call yourself a Christian and you don't do what Christ tells you to do, the Bible says you're a liar. At some point, I offend people all the time, and people move, come and go. I just want to be some sort of stop sign between you and the cliff that you're heading off of. And if you're going to let your pride, I dream of a church where men will lay down their pride and will lead their wives and children in baptism. Baptism is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just not. If you're ashamed of it, or if you're a little bit embarrassing you, let me say this very plainly. Following Jesus is not for you. It's just not. You were tricked. I'm sorry. It's just not for you. Matthew 10, 32 and 33, Jesus says, whoever acknowledges me before men, I'll also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before men, I will disown him before my Father in heaven. If you've never made the decision to be water baptized post-decision, make it right now. Right now. There's a little insert inside your experience guide. And you pull it out. I don't even know what it looks like. Pull it out there, Kinsey. I want to see this thing. Is it? Oh, it looks like that. It's a little blue. Yeah, fill it out. You can get it. You're going to get wet in 2 weeks. You're making that decision. I have decided to get water baptized because I have decided to follow Jesus. And that's just how it's going to go. At some point, I've got to lay my head on the pillow at night and go, all right, well, that's awesome. All these people got saved. Are they moving then towards their next steps? Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, because whenever we worship God in just a little bit, through giving, the buckets are going to come by, and you're going to have that filled out, and you're going to drop it in there, and one of the guys from our pastoral care team is going to get a hold of you. You're going to give them your shirt size. And you ain't going to give them a bunch of excuses about how you ain't going to be there because Aunt Jemima ain't going to be there. You know what I'm saying? Or Aunt, or Uncle Cletus, or whoever. Because we're going to take pictures, and you're going to be able to send it to them. You've decided today it's going to be a decision based off of conviction and not convenience. And some of you, here in just a second, are getting ready to make the decision that today is the day that you're going to follow Jesus. Because you've been living your life so long, and I don't know, just something's different today. Something clicked, and you're just like, I got to stop playing games. You know what I like to do? If you give me a choice between a wedding or a funeral, I'll go to the funeral every time. I don't like weddings. Say, well, didn't you like mine? Nope. I like going to funerals, though. Not in a weird, twisted sort of way. It's just 99% of funerals that you attend, there's always this moment that occurs in them where you sit there and think, dang, that was over way too soon. They were taken too soon. You're going to have this moment in life where I just like to keep that perspective. It's over quick, guys. It's just over. And if you'll live with that type of... People in caskets, they don't have anything to worry about. I mean, on the stuff that we worry about. They have the biggest thing, some of them have the biggest thing in the world to worry about. Whew, life's over, now what? Oh, eternity awaits. Well, I was a good person. I was a Christian. I was a follower of Christ. Did you ever do what Jesus told you to do? You didn't. You was a liar. That's rough and it's raw, and I'm sorry. Sure, you can go home and watch football and make yourself feel better or whatever. That's just the truth, what it is. And so I'm going to get you guys out here. Let me pray for you real quick. Would you bow your heads?